All right, man, peace. So, brothers, this is a conversation topic that pops up again and again and again and again. And that's because very few people are able to analyze what the reality of the situation is. And the conversation that I'm referencing is the who is more important to the Golden State Warriors, or who is the better player on the Golden State Warriors? Is it Kevin Durant or is it Steph Curry? And it's obvious to me that each player has a certain dynamic that they bring to the table that is irreplaceable. Kevin Durant being 6'11" with a 7'6" wingspan, shooting range out to 30 feet, who can put the ball on the floor. He really dribbles the ball a little bit too much, to be quite frank with you, especially from too far out. He really shouldn't be trying to put the ball on the floor when he's being guarded by two guards. He really should only be putting the ball on the ground where he's being guarded by fours or fives, but that's neither here nor there. The things that Kevin Durant can do are irreplaceable, and that's just on the offensive end. On the defensive end, he's a great help defender and a great rim protector. Now, in Steph Curry, you have arguably the most impactful offensive player in the NBA since Shaq. I mean, to be quite honest with you, when you talk about the most impactful NBA players in the history of the league, you're talking about Wilt Chamberlain, you're talking about Michael Jordan, you're talking about Shaq, you're talking about Steph Curry. When I say impact, I'm talking about how he affects the opposing team's defensive game plan and how his style of play results in victories, wins, and an easier offense for his teammates. I mean, I don't think that people truly understand how impactful Steph Curry is when you have a player like him who's probably the best finisher in the NBA in regards to proficiency. I'm not talking about skill. When we're talking about finishing at the cup and his skill, then it's Kyrie. But proficiency is Steph Curry. I mean, this guy's the best finisher in the NBA at the cup. And then he has a top 3, top 4 handle in the NBA. And then he's the best shooter in the league when you're talking about off the catch or off the dribble. And his range is out to 35 feet. So the level of impact that he has on the game overall, just on the offensive end, can't be replaced. And then on top of that, despite the notoriety against him, he's a very respectable defender and a very good help defender with a good nose for the basketball. But anyway, they're going to talk about it, and I'm going to chime in.
The Warriors aren't worried about the Rockets and look to be fully healthy heading into the conference finals. Can't wait. Take a look at the value of both KD and Steph Curry this year when they're on and off the court. So the team is plus 15 when Curry's on the court and only plus 3 when he's off. The Warriors are plus 9 when Durant's on the court, plus 7 when he's off. Stephen A., which player is more important to Golden State in terms of winning this championship? Is it Steph Curry or Kevin Durant?
More important is definitely Steph Curry because he takes so much pressure off of Durant. What we're expecting from Kevin Durant, and when I say we, I'm talking about the viewer, what we're expecting from Kevin Durant in these finals is for him to offset LeBron James. If he can offset LeBron James, if LeBron's bringing 34 a game, KD brings 33 a game, 34 a game. If he can do that, then Golden State's probably going to sweep or win in 5. But if he cannot offset LeBron, then it's a good possibility that Cleveland could stretch it to 6 games, maybe even 7. Who knows? What Steph does is he takes so much pressure off of KD. KD really can't be double-teamed as long as Steve Kerr does not fall in love with the Kevin Durant effect. The effect of having a 7-footer who could do all those things. Sometimes Steve Kerr falls a little bit too in love with having KD. You have to always remember where your bread is buttered. The team, Golden State I'm talking about, came into prominence on the back of Steph Curry. Always remember that. Run the offense through him. And watch how smoothly everything goes because he's unselfish. KD oftentimes gets tunnel vision because he does not have distribution skills per se. When I say skills, I'm talking about his mindset. He can distribute if you tell him to do so before the game. If Steve Kerr were to take Kevin Durant aside before a regular season game and say, KD, we need you to get your teammates involved, he can go out there and get you 32 points, 11 assists, 10 rebounds. He can do that. But that's just not in his natural DNA on the basketball court. What Steph Curry does better than any other player in the NBA is get the hockey assist. He's not a Russell Westbrook. He doesn't care about getting the actual assist. He concerns himself with making the pass that could lead to the pass. That's the assist. That's what makes him so special, is that He's not really that concerned with overall stats. When he easily could be leading the league in scoring, he easily could have bucked up against Warrior brass when they said, look, we want to bring in KD. He could have said, hell no, this is my team. We came back from down 3-1 to beat them. We won 73 games last year. We don't need him. He could have said all that, and he didn't. So Steph Curry is the one that makes that Golden State Warriors ship go.
Well, I'm going to say Kevin Durant. I mean, I understand the impact that Steph Curry has had, and I'll leave that to Max Kellerman. I'm certainly not trying to poo-poo that. But I'm thinking about this series because I don't think it matters once they get to the finals because they're going to run through whoever they face. Actually, not run through. It'll be competitive, particularly if it's Boston because of the way they're capable of defending. But nevertheless, I just look at Golden State right now, and here's what comes to my mind. Steph Curry's going to have to deal with CP3 because I think CP3 is coming. And I think that he's going to be hell-bent on performing at a very elite level.
As you brothers out there can see, this segment was filmed before the Warriors-Rockets series. But I decided to make a video from it because, of course, the overall point of the conversation, which is the dynamic between Steph Curry and Kevin Durant, is still pertinent even for the finals.
And Steph Curry is going up against a guy that's shorter in CP3, which means he's going to have a field day shooting over him, but we'll see what happens. We'll see what transpires. When I look at Kevin Durant has averaged 27.8 points per game in the last series, shot about 50% from the field. Not that great from three-point range, and we know Klay Thompson has to get going. But Kevin Durant is going to have Trevor Ariza or P.J. Tucker on him. You got to perform in that matchup. I don't mean any disrespect towards P.J. Tucker or Trevor Ariza. I got mad respect for both of them, and I know they play their roles well. But they ain't Kevin Durant.
Well, as we know in the aftermath of that series, Kevin Durant excelled in 3 out of the 7 games. But I think one of the main reasons why he struggled in the middle of the series is because Steve Kerr did not imbue him with the proper mindset. Why did he not imbue him with the proper mindset? Because he became a little bit too infatuated with what Kevin Durant could do in the half court offensively. You have to understand, Kevin Durant is very turnover prone when you run the offense through him. Steve Kerr should know that firsthand because it was Kevin Durant's turnovers in the last 3 games of the 2016 Western Conference Finals that played a main contributor in the loss of the series for the Oklahoma City Thunder. It wasn't just on Westbrook. Now, of course, having Westbrook as your decision maker, it damn sure doesn't help. But KD was put in positions where he was suckered into going one-on-one, and they really became one-on-twos because they would double-team him where he could not see the double team coming from. He put the ball on the ground too much, and he would get stripped, which oftentimes happens to him because he's 7 feet and he tries to dribble like a guard too much. So KD has to be put in a position to excel. That happens when you give the ball to Curry at the top of the key, you let him break the defense down and kick out to his shooters. Kevin Durant is going to get you 25 to 35 either way. Let it run through Steph because Steph is a pass-first, all-time great proficient shooter. And he is a pass-first player. He will give the rock up if he sees that he does not have a clear driving lane.
You know, if I'm sitting there and Steph Curry's got to perform, there's no doubt. But damn it, there's something to be said about the fact I got to go up against CP3. You, Kevin Durant, you have got to exploit that matchup with P.J. Tucker or Trevor Ariza on you. You just have to do it. You want to listen. We talk about Steph Curry being the greatest shooter we have ever seen. We talk about Kevin Durant being one of the top 3 players on the planet Earth. That's what we talk about Kevin Durant when we say. Well,
you know what? It's an argument that if Kevin Durant's one of the top 3 players on planet Earth, that Steph Curry's number 2. Because I may have to put Steph Curry at 2 over KD. A lot of people might not like that. But I make a distinction between physical gifts and overall impact on the floor, on the court. And KD has never had the impact on the court that Steph Curry had for 2 seasons. Never in his career. As great as KD was in the 2013-14 season, he's never had the impact on the floor that Steph Curry had for those 2 seasons. Especially the 2015-2016 season, which is one of the top 5 seasons I've seen any player have since I've been watching basketball.
I mean, he can't get a pass on this. We talk so much about LeBron. Kevin Durant's got a $300 million endorsement deal. Kevin Durant is getting paid over $27 million.
What are you, his accountant? Goddamn, stay out the man's wallet.
Kevin Durant is a champion. Kevin Durant is 6'11 with a 7'6 wingspan. universally recognized as one of the greatest players and scorers we have ever seen in our lifetime. You got to show up against Trevor Ariza or PJ Tucker. That's a matchup you have to exploit. That's why I say that matters.
Don't sleep on Trevor Ariza or PJ Tucker. Both those brothers can play very high-level defense, and they're going to dig in. Now, as we know, the Warriors already defeated the Rockets, but both those brothers showed up on the defensive end. Their problem was they were not consistent on the offensive end.
There's so many different ways to phrase the question even. If you said, who's the best player on the Warriors, the answer is Kevin Durant. If you say, who's the most important player on the Warriors, I think the answer is Steph Curry.
I agree. And I will phrase it as who's the most impactful player on the Golden State Warriors. And it's Steph Curry. He's the one. Kevin Durant has too many deer in headlight moments. And Steph has those moments as well. But I think he has more of them now because he does not quite know what his role is. And that's why if you want to get Golden State in a very vulnerable position, keep the game close down the stretch. And watch how they execute. They have a hard time knowing who they should give the ball to. Because they don't have a defined alpha on offense. And I think that has disempowered Curry to a degree. And kudos to him for not really making a big deal about it. But you definitely don't want the ball in Kevin Durant's hands too much in clutch situations because he's going to make the wrong decision and he's going to become a deer in headlights.
He's the one that makes them play like the Warriors because he shoots from such distance, has the handles so you can penetrate, get into the paint, make decisions with the ball. Like the whole kind of revolution that's occurred in terms of quote-unquote small ball in the NBA. Yes, it's about positionless basketball to a large extent, but it's also having that primary ball handler who can do exactly on offense at least what Steph does, and then also play responsible, like put some elbow grease into the defense, which Steph does. He's always present on defense, even if he's a little small, to always be super effective on defense. So it's really about how you phrase the question. KD's the better player. Steph is more intertwined with the identity of the team and is more kind of like the engine that allows them to do what they're going to do. But here, what we're asking really is if you had to take one player off the team, either Steph or KD, and you're still trying to win a championship, who do you take off? And
I think it's pretty obvious that it's KD. When you look at the record that the Golden State Warriors have had when KD's been out compared to when Steph has been out, it's not even a comparison.
And I would say KD, because I've seen the Warriors without KD, largely the same team as now, but with Steph, get to they beat the Cavs, but we know the Cavs without Kyrie or Kevin Love, come on. But then the following season, the 73-win season, they got to a Game 7. It's a one-possession game for like the last 5 minutes of the game. Like they came as close as you can come to winning a championship. KD.
And with all those issues that they had, the main reason why they lost Game 7 was because of Curry's poor play and his bad decisions down the stretch, as well as Harrison Barnes being something like 2 for 135 in that series. I mean, there were just so many things that happened in sequence that contributed to them losing that series. It's amazing, really. And I've stated this in the past. I believe that's the reason why the Cleveland Cavaliers spent so much of that offseason just feeling themselves so hard, running around on podcasts, talking shit. That was the genesis of LeBron James stating that he's chasing that ghost in Chicago. Like, he was feeling himself so much. That team was feeling themselves so much. And it's because I believe they felt like they did not deserve to win that series. And they were just basking in the glory while they could. They remember that the next season started. They baked the Golden State cookies where they were stepping on the cookies or stepping over their corpses. All this bullshit at some Halloween party. It was just a whole bunch of nonsense with the Cavaliers.
He wasn't on that team. So if I have to choose who to take off and I'm still trying to win the chip, I'm taking KD off, I'm leaving Steph. It's just the way the team functions.
Well, I'm not going to deny that the way the team functions in terms of the Warriors being the Warriors, there's certainly ample evidence to support your point about Steph Curry. But I'm talking about for the purposes of this series. We know that Steph Curry is going to have his hands full, just like CP3 is going to have his hands full. We look at a Klay Thompson, for example, and what he's going to go through and a miniature shooting slump that he has been in because he's not shooting as great as he can, although he is averaging 19 points per game. I'm talking about a Kevin Durant. We sit here every day talking about LeBron James being the greatest player in the world. Kevin Durant is constantly in a conversation as to whether or not he's number 2 or number 3 in the world. And he's the reigning NBA Finals MVP. And your matchup is PJ Tucker or Trevor Ariza? I mean, come on now. It is unacceptable for Kevin Durant to sit up there.
There's no reason
you are supposed to take advantage of that matchup.
Well, really what Kevin Durant needs to do is get his ass in the gym, in the weight room. Because to me, that's where many of his issues come from, where he starts to get intimidated. He becomes scared to go to the rim, especially in the later rounds of the playoffs, where physicality makes such a huge difference. PJ Tucker and Trevor Ariza were starting to push him around down the stretch of the Western Conference Finals, and it's because of his lack of girth in regards to his muscularity. You're a professional athlete. It's like he's at the opposite end of the spectrum from LeBron James, who's such a workout warrior. It's like, dude, if you got in the gym and added a little bit of muscularity, not anything that would make your game less functional, but just something that would make you feel more physical in physical moments so that you would not get pushed around, you would see the difference right away. You'd also see the difference in his aggressiveness. He wouldn't flail so much. Michael Jordan spoke about it when he started to lift weights more, especially starting in 89 all the way through the 90s. He eventually became one of the strongest players pound for pound in the league. Robert Horry said that Michael Jordan was the strongest player that he ever went up against. Like, he could feel his strength. Like, if he was going up for a rebound or a tip ball against Jordan, like he could sense and he could feel Jordan's overall full body strength. And that's something that Kevin Durant, to me, has not invested enough time in, which is keeping him from usurping LeBron James as the overall best player in the NBA. One of the things keeping him from doing so.
There's no reason that KD shouldn't be a top 10 player who ever lived, right? Like, why wouldn't he?
Right.
He's
got to show up.
Bring up his size.
Max Kellerman, is tougher to break that top 10 than you think, man. People say that all the time. They throw out these numbers. This player's top 5, he's top 10. That sounds cool until you start to make that list and write those names down. Is Kevin Durant ever going to break into the Jordan, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Bill Russell, Magic Johnson realm? No. Is he ever going to pass Larry Bird? No. Why is that? Because Larry Bird was the certified alpha on his team. Kevin Durant is not. Is he ever going to pass LeBron James? No. He's not going to pass LeBron. Sorry. Number 7, is he ever going to pass Wilt? No. Because of the things that Wilt did on the basketball court in regards to overall stats. Is he going to pass by Shaq, Hakeem Olajuwon, or Tim Duncan? I doubt it. I just don't see it, man. Shaq had 29,000 points, led his team to 4 championships. Now, you can make the case in the Miami Heat championship run, he was not the lead guy. That was D. Wade. But Shaq created such a dynamic on the floor that made it easier for D. Wade. Then, of course, Hakeem Olajuwon is arguably the greatest defensive center of all time. Arguably. You may have to put him even above Bill Russell. He's right there with Bill Russell. And then offensively, he's the most skilled center of all time. Many people do not understand how great Hakeem Olajuwon was. And then you could say the same thing for Tim Duncan, who's without a doubt the greatest defensive power forward of all time. Now, certain people may try to say Dennis Rodman or maybe even a Ben Wallace, who kind of gravitated between the 4 and the 5. But then when you add on that Tim Duncan was arguably the most skilled offensive 4-man of all time, I just don't see KD breaking into that. I think that KD right now is definitely top 25, top 30. But he's moving up with a bullet. If he wins another championship this year, he's definitely top 25, maybe even top 20. But top 10 is going to be very, very rough for him to break.
Stephen A's right.
How about the fact
They've
that
got no answer
how about
for
the
him
fact
up
that
front.
he's
Houston.
Yeah, and he's an excellent defender, KD, and in the playoffs, a consistently excellent multi-positional
But what about my
defender.
point, Max?
He's so
What
tremendous.
about my point?
But, right, that's what I'm saying. That one little thing that you want to see, even when he asserts himself, Draymond texts him, hey, you got to assert yourself. KD, if anything, is too much of a team player, if that's possible.
But
and
what
he needs
about
to
the
be
point,
told
Max?
when to assert himself in
Tucker
order to be
and
a great
Ariza?
team. What's that?
Tucker and Ariza, you're Kevin Durant. You don't have to take advantage of that
He's going to
matchup?
win those matchups.
Well, it's obvious that he has to take advantage of that, Stephen A. Smith. To be quite frank with you, your point is frivolous. Your point is a non-point. It's obvious going into the series against the Rockets that Kevin Durant has to play well. Hell, Going into the series against Cleveland, you're expecting Kevin Durant to play well. It does not matter who he's going up against. He's a preeminent player. He's expected to provide a certain stat line every series. In this series against Cleveland, you expect KD to average about 35 and 5 at the very least in order for them to do what they think they should be doing against Cleveland. So, Steve, your point, quote unquote, is a non-point.
Matchups. He's going.
You have
to take it.
Stephen
When
A.
does he not?
I know I'm the
When does he
moderator.
not?
Yes, he has to. All right, we'll leave it there, guys.
Max wouldn't answer my question. Go
I
ahead.
am. Well, the self.
You didn't have a damn question. You had a silly point because you want to perpetuate this silly rivalry with Kevin Durant, and Durant has even moved past you. As sensitive as he is, he's done with you already, Stephen A. Simp. But anyway, we'll see how KD does against LeBron James. Peace.